Greetings to you all in the marvelous name of Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Welcome to Bible God Answers. I hope that these videos are helping you to understand the book of Revelation and the things that are going to happen in the future. So today we are going to look at one of the famous questions in the Bible, that what are 10 plagues of Egypt? What are the 10 plagues of Egypt? We will completely understand this 10 plagues of Egypt and why these 10 plagues of Egypt came upon the Egypt, and why God allowed these plagues on Egypt, and why God sent these plagues on the Egypt. So how God used the Moses to perform these miracles, perform these wonders on the land of Egypt. So why God allowed this kind of plagues in this land of Egypt. So the 10 plagues of Egypt, Egypt, also known as the 10 plagues or the plagues of Egypt, or also called as the biblical plagues. So if you look at Exodus chapter 7 verses 1 to chapter 7 verses 1 to chapter 12. So 7 to 12, almost some kind of 6 chapters. It describes about the 10 plagues of Egypt, how they happened, and how God used those plagues to remove or to free the bondages of the Israelites. So if you look at the plagues were 10 destroys or disasters sent upon Egypt by God to convince Pharaoh to free the Israelites from the bondages. So almost this 400 years they were under the oppression, they were under the bondage. So Israelites were under the bondage. Israelites are under the bondage of 400 years in the land of Egypt. So under the kings of Pharaohs. So if you look at their condition, and they pleaded to God, and they asked their Savior to redeem them from the bondage of the Egypts. So from this point of view, God sent Moses over there, and he was telling about these 10 plagues. If you look at Exodus chapter 3 verse 20, it says that, "So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders that I will do in it. After that he will let you go." So he will let you go. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders that I will do in it. After that he will let you go. So here Moses is here God is sending the Moses in the land of Egypt, and saying to the Moses that you just go just before the Pharaoh and say that let my people go. So let my people go. So let the Israelites break the bondages. Let the Israelites will come out of this land of Egypt. So Pharaoh will deny, and so then God is saying that I will stretch out my hand and strike the Egypt with all the wonders that I will do in it. So after that he will let you go. So after completion of these wonders, after completion of these plagues only, then only he will allow you to take the Israelites from the land of Egypt. So that's what God said to Moses, and Moses went to the land of Egypt at the time of 80 years of his old. So from this point of view, we can understand that. So there are mainly two purposes why God sent these plagues on gods and goddesses of Egypt. Now how God is sending these plagues on Egypt and the land of the Egypt, on the Pharaoh and the Pharaoh servants and the people of Egyptians. So there are mainly two purposes. The first purpose is to show the Israelites that the God of their forefathers was alive and worthy of their worship. To show the Israelites that the God of the fathers was alive and worthy of their worship. The first purpose why God sent these plagues on the land of Egypt. So where the Israelites and Egyptians are living together, but the Egyptians are becomes like a boss, and these Israelites are become like a slaves in the land of Egypt. So here God is showing to the Israelites that the God of their forefathers was alive, and he is worthy to be worshipped. He is worthy to be worshipped. So that's what he want to show through these 10 plagues. Second purpose is that to show that the Egyptians, to show to the Egyptians that their gods and goddesses are nothing. Their gods and goddesses are nothing. So from this point of view, we can understand that he want to show to the Israelites, he is the God of their forefathers, is alive, and he is worthy to be worshipped. That's he want to show to the Israelites. Second purpose, he want to show to the Egyptians. He want to show to the Egyptians that their gods and goddesses were nothing. Their gods and goddesses were nothing in front of the God of Yahweh, God of Yahweh. So God of the Lord. So if you look at that, so the Israelites are under the bondage of 400 years, and while the span of these 400 years, they lost the faith. But they believed that God of Jehovah, the Lord of Jehovah, will come and redeem them. But they believed in that, but they lost the faith. And but they believed in Yahweh and they worshipped Yahweh. That's why they pleaded to God, and God sent Moses to redeem them. So in that point of view, but they doubted. Israelites were doubted that whether they will be out of these bondages or not, whether God will send anyone to break these bondages and to redeem us from these bondages of Egypt. So the Egyptians, like all other pagan cultures, they worshipped many of nature gods and goddesses, so attributing that their powers are the things, natural phenomena. So actually all the things, for example, they have the god of sun, they have the god of river, they have the god of crops, they have the god and goddesses of childbirth. So they have different kinds of god and goddesses that actually these are all natural phenomena. So when it comes to the sun, it is giving the light. The sun is giving the light. So, and these are all nature. These are all environmental things that has to be happening in the natural phenomena. But these people worshipped the sun. They believed that sun is the god, and they believed that there is a god for the crops, there is a god for the river, and they believed that there are god and goddesses for the childbirth. So in this kind of things, they were believed in the pagan culture, and they were believed that so their gods are doing much and very much good things to them by sending light from the sun, and by sending water through the river, and by growing the crops, by giving the food from the crops, and by in the sense of by giving the child through the childbirth. So in that sense, they believe that these god and goddesses is the nature gods. They believed and they worshipped the nature gods. So God want to show to the Egyptians that their gods and goddesses were nothing. Their gods and goddesses were nothing. So if you look at Exodus chapter 5 verse 2, it says like this: But Pharaoh said, Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go. I will not let Israel go. This is what the statement from Pharaoh when Moses asked Pharaoh to leave Israelites. So when Moses asked to Pharaoh that just let Israel go, so he was saying that who is the Lord? Who is the Lord? Why should I obey his voice? Why should I let this Israel go? So he was so much proudly saying that I will not let Israel go. Who is the Lord? I don't know about the Lord. I don't know about the Yahweh. I don't know about the who is he. So Pharaoh is filled with his mind and with his heart, with the hardness, and he was with the pride. He was with the pride. So that make him to say the prideful words. So that's why God began the challenges to show who he is and how he is and how much power he has. So here comes the battle between the God and gods and goddesses of Egypt, God of Israelites and God and goddesses of Egypt, God of Israelites and God and goddesses of Egypt. There is a battle in a spiritual sense. So the first plague. So here God want to show who he is to Pharaoh's servants and to Pharaoh people. The first plague. So one by one we will look into the plagues and we will understand that how they will judge the God and goddesses of Egypt. The first plague that God sent onto the Egyptians, that turning the Nile to blood. So the Egyptian river is called as the Nile. The name is Nile. So Nile was turned into blood. The river Nile was turned into blood. So they believe that this Nile river is there is a god and there is a goddess and there is a guardian over there. So who is the god? God of Nile river is Apis, and goddesses of Nile river is Isis. So guardian of Nile river is Kunum. So God turned this Nile river water into blood, into the poisonous state. So through that, God is showing his anger, or God is showing his judgment upon or against Apis, against Isis, and against Kunum. And also there is another goddess. It is named as Osiris. So they believe that this Nile river is the bloodstream of this god. So bloodstream of this god. So this Nile river is the bloodstream of Osiris, the goddess of Egypt, the goddess of Osiris. So they believed that this goddess Osiris, she will reborn every year when the river was flooded. When the river is flooded, so every year this goddess Osiris is reborn. So that's what they believe, and they believe that this Nile river is the bloodstream of Osiris. So from this point of view, God is showing his judgment, or showing his anger, showing his wrath upon Apis, upon Isis, and upon Kunum, and upon Osiris. So he was showing to the Egyptians, and he was showing to the Egyptians that their gods and goddesses were nothing. And he is showing to the Israelites that their God is most powerful than any other god on the land of Egypt. So if you look at Exodus chapter 7 verse 17, says, "Thus says the Lord, by this you shall know that I am the Lord. Behold, with the staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water that is in the Nile, and it shall turn into blood." So the Nile River is the main resource or main source for the Egyptians for their daily life. So because from this Nile river only they will catch the fishes, and they will survive themselves by eating those fishes as their food habits. So And also it is a very much national income for Egypt country. National income comes from Nile River. National income, the most resourceable one in the land of Egypt is Nile River. So this Nile River turned into blood, and everything that is in the rivers, that is in the Nile River, was died. Even the fishes, even the crocodiles, even everything, all the water bodies turn into blood, turn into poison. So that causes these fishes to die, and that causes every creature that is under the waters to be died. So this is the national income. This is the national income for Egyptians. So God sent the plague to destroy this national income, and to destroy this Nile River, and showing his judgment upon the gods and goddesses of Nile River, gods and goddesses of Egypt, by showing the anger upon the Nile River. The second plague. So the second plague is frogs from the Nile River. Frogs from the Nile River. So it is a judgment against Hecate, the frog-headed god, the frog-headed goddess. So this is the goddess of childbirth. This is a goddess of childbirth. So Egyptians believed that this is the god who gives the babies to them, who is the source for their childbirth, Hecate. So God is showing his anger, or showing his judgment upon the goddesses of childbirth, Hecate, and he was showing his anger upon them. And frogs were thought to be sacred, and they were thought to be not to kill. So the Egyptians did not kill the frogs, because they believed that this frog-headed goddess of childbirth is the source for their child. So they believed that these frogs are the goddesses, or these frogs are the children of goddesses. So they did not kill those frogs. So that's why in Exodus chapter 8 verses 13 to 14, there it says that, and the Lord did according to the word of Moses. The frogs died out in the houses, the courtyards, and the fields, and they gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. So all the homes and every part of the homes were filled with the frogs, and they were died, and these Egyptians gathered all these died frogs onto some kind of groups, and it was just like a stink over the whole world. Just imagine, my friends. Just imagine. So these frogs brought the plague, and it brought so many diseases to them. Third plague. Next plague is that third plague. Gnats. It was a judgment on Seth, the god of desert. These gnats are coming from the desert, coming from the dust. So that's why he is showing the judgment on Seth, the god of the desert. So the magicians are unable to duplicate this plague. So they duplicated the first and second plagues, and they tried to duplicate the first and second plagues, but when it comes to the third plague, they were not unable to duplicate this plague, and declare to the Pharaoh that we can see in Exodus chapter 8 verse 19, and they declared that this is the finger of God. It means they believed that God of Israel sent these kind of plagues upon the land of Egypt. Exodus chapter 8 verse 19, it says, then the magician said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to them, as the Lord had said. So already the Lord has said to Moses that he will harden the heart of Pharaoh. So even the magicians said to Pharaoh that this is the finger of God. Only God is showing his anger, and God is sending these plagues, not from anyone else. So God of Israelites is more powerful than anyone else. So they admitted themselves. So third plague is gnats, and fourth plague is flies. So flies. It is a judgment on Uchit, the fly god. The fly god. This is the god who has the some kind of resemblance of flies. So his name is Uchit. So in this plague, God clearly distinguished the Israelites and Egyptians. First three plagues came upon both the Israelites and Egyptians. But when it comes to this fourth plague, so God distinguished both Israelites and Egyptians. But if you look at Exodus chapter 8, verse 21 to 24, or else if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you and your servants and your people into your houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be filled with swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. But on the day I will set apart the land of Goshen, where my people dwell, so that no swarms of flies shall be there, that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. Thus I will put a division between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall happen. And the Lord did so. There came great swarms of flies into the houses of Pharaoh and into the houses of servants. Throughout all the land of Egypt, the land was ruined by the swarms of flies. So the fourth plague is flies. Swarms of flies came upon the land of Egypt, but it does not came upon the land of Goshen, where Israelites lived, where Israelites were having the homes. So it did not. These swarms of flies did not affected on Israelites. Only it is affected on Egyptians. So he is showing the anger upon the fly god Uchit. So the fifth plague, the death of livestock. It was a judgment on the goddess. Hathor, and the god of Apis, who are both depicted as cattle. So these two god and goddesses, this god Apis and goddess Hathor, looks like cattle, looks like some kind of animals. So that's why these Egyptians believed, or the Egyptians worshipped this god of Apis and goddess Hathor. So they worship the goddess Hathor and they worship the god Apis. So they just look like a cattle, they just look like animals over there. So from the point of previous plague, so God protected his people from the plague. So God said that this death of livestock will be upon the Egyptians, not on the Israelites' livestock. So God protected his people from the plague, while the cattle of the Egyptians died. So if you look at Exodus chapter 9 verse 7, and Pharaoh sent, and behold, not one of the livestock of Israel was dead, but the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and did not let the people go. So from this point of view, we can come to that Pharaoh sent some of the investigators to investigate that whether the Israelites' livestock died or not. So they came back to, once they done the investigation, they came back to Pharaoh and they said that, so even one livestock or even one animal did not died. So even not one of the livestock of Israel was dead. Not one of the Israel livestock was dead. So that's what he is protecting, the God's people and God's livestock. And so this is all about this out of 10 plagues, we looked at the 5 plagues. So in the next video, we will look at the another 5 plagues. So this is the part 1. We will look at these 5 plagues, and in the next video, we will look at the another 5 plagues. So I hope that how God is showing his anger or showing his judgment upon the gods and goddesses of Egyptians, and showing to the Israelites that where God was more powerful than any other gods on the land of Egypt, on the land of the whole world. So here is the good news for you. Our Lord is the Lord who is most powerful than any other gods and goddesses of this earth. He is most powerful than any other gods. He is more powerful than any other gods and goddesses on this earth. So my dear friends, we have such kind of a huge God who is more powerful, more powerful than any other gods. What a blessed we are. So hope that this video will help you to understand how these 10 plagues show God's judgment upon the gods and goddesses of Egypt. May God bless you.